Callum Riker's boots clicked against the metal floor of Irinder 7's orbital research station. The air was recycled, dry, and sharp with the tang of ozone from the lab's containment fields. Every step echoed. He felt it in his chest, a mix of fear, excitement, and responsibility. Today, something impossible had been found. A creature no human had ever touched, a baby dragon rumored to be the rarest life form in the galaxy. He paused outside the lab, peering through the reinforced glass. Inside, the creature lay in a mesh of silver and blue containment nets. Its tiny body trembled, wings folded awkwardly at its sides. The hatchling's scales shimmered like fractured light, colors shifting in waves. Even from across the room, Callum could feel its presence. Small but powerful, fragile yet fierce. Other scientists hovered nearby, murmuring nervously. No one dared approach. Any sudden movement might trigger the net's auto-defense system, which could electrocute an intruder. A single misstep could kill either human or hatchling. Yet Callum felt a pull stronger than fear. He had spent years studying alien species, but this was different. He didn't just see a specimen. He saw a living being that needed him. A sudden high-pitched shriek cut through the lab, and the hatchling arched its back, emitting a glow that made the shadows in the room flicker. Callum's heart clenched. The other scientists jumped back. "It's dangerous," one whispered. "Stay back." Callum swallowed. "It's scared," he said quietly. "Not dangerous." The room fell silent, the only sound the soft whir of life support machines and the crackle of containment energy. Callum adjusted his gloves, running through every scenario in his mind. The net would shock him instantly if he misjudged the timing. One wrong move and he could be fried. And yet, doing nothing might mean the hatchling would starve or panic until it died. He stepped forward. The other scientists tensed, but none interfered. Callum's eyes were locked on the hatchling's glowing amber eyes. They were wide, unblinking, intelligent even in fear. The creature sniffed the air, its tiny nostrils flaring. He could feel its heartbeat through the glass, quick and panicked. Callum's hand hovered above the net. He studied the pattern of its electrical pulses, the rhythm of the containment fields, the timing of its safety overrides. Each second he waited increased the risk. The hatchling could thrash, break the net, or worse, trigger a catastrophic system failure. Yet every second also gave him more data, more chance to act without killing it. A quiet determination settled over him. "I can do this," he whispered. His mind sharpened, every instinct focused. He knew fear could freeze a person in seconds. But intelligence, timing, and courage could bend even the deadliest odds. He would not fail this creature. Not today. The hatchling shrieked again, louder this time, echoing off the steel walls. Its wings twitched as if it wanted to fly but couldn't. Callum stepped closer, slow, deliberate. He felt the heat of the containment nets hum beneath his gloves. He calculated. 1, 2, 3 heartbeats, then he moved. He slid his fingers along a panel on the side of the net, feeling the smooth metal pulse with energy. His pulse raced, matching the creature's. He pressed a button that disarmed a minor section of the net for just a split second. Enough. The hatchling froze, sensing the pause. Callum exhaled quietly and extended his hand. The air between them felt like fire and ice, tension vibrating through the lab. Its eyes widened, pupils like black liquid. Time slowed. Every scientist held their breath. Callum's fingers brushed the hatchling's scales. Tiny sparks jumped off his gloves. Pain shot up his arm, but he held fast. The hatchling shivered, quivering like it had never been touched before, and then something extraordinary happened. It did not bite, it did not claw. It tilted its head toward him, as if recognizing the intent in his touch. A collective gasp echoed in the lab. Callum clenched his jaw, forcing his focus to remain. He had only seconds before the secondary safety systems would react, shutting the hatchling off from the world, or worse. Then a loud klaxon blared. Red lights flashed. The lab's AI announced in a calm, robotic voice. Containment breach detected. Security protocols engaged. Callum froze. Seconds before, he had risked his life to touch a creature thought untouchable. Now the full weight of the station's automated defenses pressed down on him. Doors began to close. Energy shutters slid into place. The hatchling panicked, shrieking, wings flaring in frantic arcs. Sparks flew, and the air smelled of ozone and fear. Callum's mind raced. The tiny creature had already survived what no human had ever done. Being found, being trapped, being feared. Now it depended on him again. He had to act and fast. One wrong move would crush both him and the hatchling beneath steel and electricity. He squared his shoulders and tightened his grip. "I'm not letting you die," he murmured. "Not today." Behind the alarm's red glare, he could see the hatchling's eyes locking onto his. In them he read trust, fear, and a tiny spark of hope. Callum knew what he had to do next. He had to save it from the station's defenses before they claimed the life of the universe's rarest creature. And as the first shutter began to drop, he realized the impossible had only just begun. The alarm's wail echoed through the lab, sharp and insistent. Red lights flashed against the steel walls, casting harsh shadows over the frightened scientists. Callum's heart pounded in his chest, each beat matching the hatchling's frantic pulse. The small creature wriggled in his hands, tiny claws scratching the air. Sparks crackled from the containment net, sizzling dangerously close to his gloves. Behind him, the lab's AI voice droned, unauthorized contact detected. Security protocols engaged. Containment measures at maximum. Doors sealed automatically. Energy fields surged. One wrong move and both he and the hatchling could be fried instantly. "Callum, stop!" shouted Dr. Havel, a senior xenobiologist. "You'll die. Pull back." Callum ignored her, focusing instead on the tiny life in his hands. The hatchling's wings flapped weakly, scales flashing like molten metal. Its chest heaved as it shivered from fear. He had studied alien physiology for years, but nothing prepared him for this. The creature was delicate yet brimming with untapped energy. One mistake and he could kill it before it even had a chance to survive outside the net. He crouched, calculating. The net's energy pulses followed a pattern. A slow, predictable rhythm disrupted by the AI's secondary security override. If he could time his next move between pulses, he could disable the active section long enough to free the hatchling. But the risk was immediate. The net sensors would detect him instantly, and the AI could reroute power at any moment. Callum's gloves tingled with static. He swallowed, steadying his breathing. His mind raced. Think like the hatchling, think like the AI, and think like a human capable of surviving impossible odds. He had only one shot. He reached for his portable EMP disruptor, a small device capable of short-circuiting electronic systems. It was risky. If he miscalculated, he would fry the circuits entirely, triggering a full lockdown. He glanced at the hatchling. Its glowing eyes met his, unafraid despite its tiny size. The creature trusted him. Callum's jaw tightened. He could not fail. The first pulse came. Sparks danced across the net. Callum activated the EMP. A bright flash of blue light jumped from the device, and the nearest section of the net fizzled for exactly half a second. It was enough. He slid his hand through the gap, careful not to touch the live wires, and cupped the hatchling closer. It shrieked, a piercing electric cry, but did not lash out. Instead, it pressed into his chest, small body trembling. Callum could feel its heartbeat racing. He held it gently, guiding its fragile wings to fold safely against its body. Every muscle in him tensed. The lab was a storm of light, sound, and electricity, and one slip could end everything. Another alarm cut in, this one sharper, more insistent. The AI had detected the EMP surge and was rerouting power to the rest of the containment grid. The remaining nets sparked violently. Callum realized the AI would soon initiate a full chamber lockdown, encasing the hatchling in impenetrable alloy before he could move. He had seconds. He scanned the room. Emergency doors led to the isolation pod, designed for dangerous specimens. It was small, just large enough for him and the creature, and had independent life support. But reaching it meant running across the lab under full alert, dodging energy pulses and falling debris. The hatchling's tiny claws gripped his chest as he rose. The first pulse of the next net sizzled close to his gloves. Callum pivoted, using his body to shield the creature from sparks. He calculated the gaps in the energy grid with split-second precision, timing each step. He sprinted, leaping over fallen equipment, rolling under retracting barriers the hatchling held tight. Sparks grazed his shoulder, a gust of heated air singed his hair. Pain shot through him, but he ignored it. Humans survive by thinking, by risking, by acting when others freeze. Halfway across the lab, a panel exploded, sending metal shards flying. The hatchling shrieked, and Callum instinctively shielded it with his body. One shard nicked his forearm, but he kept moving. Every second mattered. The AI's automated arms swung into the corridor, trying to intercept him. He ducked under one, rolled sideways, and used a small magnetic stabilizer on his belt to anchor himself to the floor, propelling forward with calculated force. Finally, he reached the isolation pod. He punched the access code, praying the emergency override still functioned. The hatchling pressed against him, glowing softly as if sensing safety. The pod hissed open, and he slipped inside, slamming the door behind him just as the lab's shutters began to crash down on the floor where he had been standing seconds ago. Sparks and energy arcs lit the room, and a deafening alarm blared. Callum dropped to one knee, gasping for breath. The hatchling nestled into his chest, wings trembling but slowly calming. Its amber eyes studied him, bright and curious. Callum smiled faintly, adrenaline still coursing. He had done it. He had survived the lab's defenses, protected the creature, and made it to safety. But relief was brief. The pod's internal systems were stable, but the lab's AI was not done. It scanned the pod, detecting the presence of a life form not cleared in the system. Security drones were already mobilizing. Callum realized that outside this small sanctuary, danger was waiting. The hatchling's survival depended on him moving again, fast, precise, and daring. He tightened his hold on the creature, feeling its small heartbeat sync with his own. Its trust weighed heavily on him. He had protected the rarest life in the galaxy once, but the true challenge was just beginning. Every decision from here on would mean life or death, for both human and dragon. Callum's eyes narrowed. He whispered, "We're not finished yet. Hold on, little one. We're going to survive this." Outside the pod, alarms blared louder and mechanical arms began to probe the corridors. The hatchling shivered but pressed closer. Callum's fingers clenched into a fist. His mind already raced ahead. If he could think faster than the AI, move faster than the machines, and act with courage greater than fear, they might just make it through alive. The pod's lights flickered as a distant metallic crash shook the station. Callum knew the next seconds would decide everything. And he had no choice but to keep moving forward. Callum's breath echoed inside the small isolation pod. The hatchling pressed against his chest, trembling, wings folding tightly. Outside, the lab's alarms screamed like a predator's roar, warning of impending danger. Security drones and mechanical arms roamed the corridors, scanning for any life form not authorized to exist. Every second counted. One wrong move and both he and the hatchling could die. He studied the pod's control panel. The emergency systems were basic: life support, temperature regulation, and a minimal communication link. Nothing offensive, nothing to fight the drones. He had no weapons, no backup, only his mind, his hands, and his courage. That was all a human needed. Callum's pulse raced, matching the hatchling's frantic heartbeat. The pod's sensors blinked. A mechanical arm appeared at the corridor entrance, probing, sensing life. It moved methodically, coldly, and unrelenting. Callum exhaled slowly, letting his mind focus. He had seen alien drones before, studied their behavior patterns. They were precise but predictable. With careful timing and ingenuity, he could manipulate them, avoid them, and escape. He scanned the pod's small inventory. A magnetic tether, a few portable gel packs, and the hatchling itself. That was everything. Callum realized the hatchling wasn't just a passenger. Its tiny energy emissions were unpredictable. The drones detected it as a high-energy anomaly. But if he could mask those signals temporarily, they might get a chance to slip past unnoticed. He carefully unlatched a gel pack, heating it to emit a low-frequency pulse. The hatchling's scales flickered in response, glowing softly. Callum timed the pulse to coincide with the drone's scanning pattern. The arm paused, confused by the sudden energy fluctuation. Callum held his breath, fingers gripping the hatchling's tiny body. Timing, precision, courage, this was all he had. When the drone moved again, he triggered the gel pulse a second time. Its sensors flickered, then recalibrated. Callum saw the opening, a narrow window in the corridor where the drone could not reach him. He adjusted the hatchling closer to his chest, keeping its energy steady, and pushed the pod's hatch open. The door creaked under pressure, but it held. He slid through the corridor, moving silently, each step deliberate. Halfway down the hall, another drone activated. It had a wider scanning range, and this one was faster. Callum froze, weighing options. Retreat wasn't possible. The hatchling was too heavy for speed, and the pod behind him would lock automatically. He needed a distraction. His eyes landed on a panel of loose wiring. Callum ripped it free, exposing a bundle of conductive cables. He wrapped them around a gel pack, careful to avoid shocking himself. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he tossed it down the corridor. Sparks shot upward, and the drone swiveled, investigating. Callum seized the moment. He sprinted, ducking low as the hatchling clung to his chest, wings brushing his shoulders. Sparks and smoke swirled around them. The hatchling shrieked, a short, high-pitched cry that startled him, but Callum murmured softly, "It's okay. I've got you." Just a little further. Its eyes, bright and intelligent, seemed to understand. Courage radiated from him in waves. The small creature was not just surviving, it was learning to trust a human. Another obstacle appeared, a corridor collapse, debris blocking the path. Callum's mind raced. There was no way around. Only over. He adjusted the hatchling, holding it securely, and leaped onto the jagged metal. His boots scraped sparks off the floor. The hatchling's claws dug into his coat, tiny but strong. The debris shifted under him, threatening to topple. He gritted his teeth, holding steady. Every ounce of his strength counted. Behind him, the AI activated a security override. Metal shutters began to descend rapidly, threatening to trap them in a dead end. Callum's heart pounded in sync with the hatchling's rapid breathing. One misstep and they would be crushed. He timed a jump perfectly, rolling past the last section as the shutters slammed shut behind him. A wave of heat and metal clanging hit the corridor just as he reached the next hallway. He paused to catch his breath. The hatchling pressed its head against his chest, and for a moment, calm returned. But the tension did not. The AI was relentless. Drones would continue to sweep the station. Containment fields could reactivate any second. Callum's mind whirred with options. He had survived by thinking faster than the machines, moving faster than the drones, and risking what no one else would. And yet, he knew this was only the beginning. The pod was a small victory, temporary and fragile. The hatchling's survival depended not only on his courage but on his intelligence, adaptability, and determination to face impossible odds. A sudden hiss echoed from around the corner. Another drone, faster, larger, armed with mechanical claws capable of piercing steel. Callum's pulse jumped. He tightened his grip on the hatchling. There was no time to retreat. He scanned the environment. Pipes, panels, conduits. Improvisation would be his weapon. Humans survived by making the impossible possible. He whispered to the hatchling, "Stay close. I promise we'll get through this." The creature's small body vibrated in response, instinctively leaning into his warmth. Trust had been earned, courage shared. Callum inhaled. He adjusted the gel pulse device in his hand and aimed it at the approaching drone. Sparks arced, lights flickered, and the drone hesitated, scanning the disruption. That hesitation was all he needed. He bolted, weaving through a narrow passage, moving faster than the AI predicted, pushing both himself and the hatchling to limits no human should survive. Metal screeched behind him, alarms echoed, and sparks flew. Each step, each heartbeat was a calculated risk. And still, Callum moved forward, refusing to let fear control him. One human, one tiny dragon, facing impossible odds together. At the far end of the corridor, the next chamber's reinforced doors loomed. If he could reach them, he could find a safe zone, a place to plan their next move. But as he ran, a low rumble echoed, another layer of defense activating, heavier, faster, more dangerous. Callum's eyes narrowed. He gritted his teeth, holding the hatchling tightly. They weren't safe yet. Not by a long shot. And then the first of the new obstacles hit. The floor beneath them shuddered, threatening to collapse. Callum's boots slammed against the trembling metal floor. Sparks and debris scattered with every step as the corridor groaned under pressure. The hatchling clung to his chest, wings fluttering weakly. Its amber eyes glowed, reflecting fear, but also trust. He could not fail it. Not now. Not ever. Ahead, the corridor had collapsed partially, leaving jagged steel and twisted panels blocking their path. Behind him, the lab's AI had mobilized every defense. Drones swarming, energy pulses crackling, and shutters sliding with lethal precision. The sound of metal grinding echoed through the station. Each second the hatchling stayed in his arms increased its exposure to danger. Callum paused, calculating. One wrong move and they would both die, crushed under metal or electrocuted. But retreat was impossible. There was only one way forward. He scanned the environment, eyes flicking over pipes, control panels, and fallen scaffolding. Improvisation was his only weapon. Humans survive by thinking, by acting when others freeze, by risking what seems impossible. The hatchling shrieked as a drone swooped low, mechanical claws slicing the air just inches from them. Callum swerved, using a loose panel as a shield. Sparks flew, scorching his gloves. Pain shot up his arm, but he clenched his teeth and pressed on. The hatchling's small heartbeat thudded against his chest, frantic but steady. Callum whispered, "We're almost there. Hold on." He noticed a series of overhead conduits, thin metal pipes that ran parallel to the corridor. The drone's scanning sensors were focused on floor level. If he could climb and swing across, he could bypass the remaining defenses. The hatchling chirped nervously, but Callum pressed gently, reassuring it with warmth and calm. With effort, he gripped the nearest pipe and hoisted himself up. The hatchling's claws dug into his coat as he balanced precariously. Sparks from the damaged ceiling rained down, sizzling around them. Callum's muscles burned, but he ignored it. Every human instinct screamed to survive and protect, to act with courage even against impossible odds. A second drone appeared ahead, larger and faster, its mechanical limbs ready to strike. Callum studied its pattern. It moved with precision but lacked flexibility. He realized he could lure it into the debris field below. Timing would be critical. One misstep and the hatchling could be crushed. He calculated the angle, the distance, the drone's momentum. Then he moved. With a sharp twist, he released a small magnetic gel pack from his belt. It clattered to the floor, emitting a pulse of energy that mimicked the hatchling's life signature. The drone paused, recalibrating its sensors, giving Callum the fraction of a second he needed. He leapt, swinging from the pipe, landing just beyond the drone's reach. Sparks and debris erupted as the device misled the drone into colliding with the floor. Callum exhaled sharply, gripping the hatchling tighter. "One more," he muttered. They weren't safe yet. Beyond the debris, the next chamber contained the station's observation deck, where an emergency shuttle could be accessed. If they reached it, they could escape the lab and the drones entirely. But the path was narrow, lined with energy grids and collapsing panels. He had seconds. The hatchling whimpered as a metal shutter began descending rapidly behind them. Callum sprinted, calculating the gaps in the energy grids. Sparks danced along the floor, brushing his boots. He dove over a collapsing section, rolling on impact, clutching the hatchling. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he ignored it. Courage demanded action. Fear could not control him. At the final stretch, the shuttle's docking bay door loomed, glowing with soft blue light. But one last obstacle remained, the largest drone yet, armed with retractable claws and energy sensors. Callum's mind raced. Retreat was impossible. He had only one chance to act. He took a deep breath. With careful precision, he swung the hatchling close to his chest and ran toward a cluster of fallen panels. Using the same magnetic gel trick, he created a false energy signature on one side, drawing the drone away from the docking bay. It hesitated, sensors flickering. Callum sprinted forward, leaping over a gap in the floor, sliding across the smooth metal. The hatchling shrieked in alarm, wings flapping, but he held it steady. The shuttle doors hissed open. Callum dove inside, slamming the hatchback control. Sparks and energy arcs lit the corridor behind them. The drone lunged, claws swiping the air just as the doors sealed. Metal ground against metal, electricity arced, and then silence. They had made it. Inside the shuttle, the hatchling pressed against him, trembling but alive. Its tiny wings fluttered weakly, and its eyes, bright and intelligent, met his. Callum exhaled, letting the adrenaline fade. They had survived the lab's defenses, the drones, and the collapsing corridors. Human courage, intelligence, and determination had overcome impossible odds. Callum looked out the viewport at the station, sparks and alarms flickering in the distance. Every second he had risked his life, calculated angles, improvised with technology, and acted with unwavering courage. He had protected a creature that no one else dared touch. And in doing so, he had proven what humans could do when faced with impossible challenges. Survive, protect, and triumph. The hatchling chirped softly, curling into his chest. Callum smiled faintly, feeling a wave of relief and connection. This tiny creature, rare and fragile, had survived because of human courage. But he knew their trials were not over. Outside the shuttle, the station was still crawling with automated defenses. They had escaped immediate danger, but the journey to safety, to sanctuary, had only just begun. Callum tightened his grip and whispered, "We're not done yet. Stay close. I'll get you out of this alive." The hatchling pressed closer, a small heartbeat against his own, and for the first time the creature seemed to understand. Trust had been earned, courage had been shared, and human determination had carried them through the impossible. And as the shuttle lifted from the docking bay, the station below crackling with alarms and danger, Callum knew that this moment, their survival, was only the beginning of a story the galaxy would never forget. The shuttle drifted silently above Rarest 7, the orbital city shrinking beneath them into a glittering lattice of steel, lights, and shadows. Callum Riker sat in the cockpit, gripping the controls with tense hands, the hatchling cradled against his chest. Its tiny wings fluttered weakly, eyes glowing with intelligence and trust. For the first time in hours, the immediate danger had passed, but the weight of what they had survived pressed on him. He exhaled, leaning back for a moment, letting the shuttle's hum fill the silence. The hatchling chirped softly, nuzzling into his chest. Callum smiled faintly. "We did it," he whispered. "You're safe now." He could feel the small creature's heartbeat, fast and fragile, matching his own. A rare life, a miracle in scales and fire, had survived because of human courage and determination. The hatchling's scales reflected the soft lights of the shuttle's interior, shimmering with colors he had never seen before. Callum studied them, marveling at the creature's beauty and resilience. It had survived containment nets, energy fields, drones, and collapsing corridors, all because one human had dared to act when everyone else hesitated. A spark of pride and awe flickered in his chest. Humanity, he realized, could be extraordinary when courage was paired with intelligence and compassion. He adjusted the hatchling carefully, keeping it warm and calm. Even in the sanctuary of the shuttle, the creature trembled. Callum knew its survival depended not only on physical safety but on trust. Every human decision had to protect both life and morale, and he had learned that instinctively over the last harrowing hours. Through the shuttle's viewport, Irindar 7 glimmered below. Sparks still shot up from the damaged sections of the lab. Security teams would investigate, drones would scan, and the AI would analyze what had happened. Callum knew the station would report the hatchling as lost, a failure of containment. But in reality, it had survived because of human daring. That was a triumph no report could measure, a victory written in courage rather than protocol. He activated the shuttle's navigation system, plotting a course toward the research sanctuary orbiting the outer rim, a hidden station equipped to care for rare and dangerous lifeforms. Every calculation had to be precise. Even the smallest misstep in orbit could send them hurtling into the void. Callum checked and rechecked each parameter, hands steady despite fatigue, mind sharp despite exhaustion. One human, one tiny creature facing the vastness of space together. Hours passed in silence, the shuttle cutting through the void. The hatchling slowly relaxed, curling into his chest. Callum's eyes wandered to the control panel, then back to the tiny creature. Its survival was not just a scientific marvel. It was proof of what humans could accomplish when fear was set aside and intellect and courage guided action. He felt a surge of something deeper than pride, responsibility. Life, fragile and rare, was worth every risk, every calculation, every heartbeat. Finally, the research sanctuary appeared, a gleaming station floating in orbit, quiet, safe, and prepared for their arrival. Docking procedures engaged and the shuttle slid into the bay. Callum carefully carried the hatchling into the facility, where a team of xenobiologists awaited. Their eyes widened at the sight of the shimmering scales, the tiny, trembling wings, and the bright, intelligent eyes that studied everything. "You brought it here alive?" one scientist asked, disbelief and awe mingling in their voice. "It's impossible." Callum smiled faintly. "Nothing is impossible if humans act with courage," he said, setting the hatchling down in the temperature-controlled habitat. The creature paused, then began to explore its new environment, cautious but curious. Its chirps and soft wing flutters seemed almost like gratitude. As he watched, Callum reflected on the hours that had passed, the alarms, the drones, the collapsing corridors. Every moment had demanded split-second decisions, every choice had been weighted with life or death consequences. And yet they had survived. Humans had survived. Not through luck, not through fear, but through determination, intelligence, and courage. That was the essence of heroism. Word of the event spread quickly through the scientific community and beyond. Reports described a human who had touched a creature feared and untouchable, defied station security, and saved life where none dared try. Across colonies and stations, whispers grew into stories and stories grew into legend. Humans were capable of extraordinary things, even when facing the impossible. Callum's actions became a symbol not just of bravery, but of humanity's ability to rise above fear and protect life in its most fragile form. He returned to the observation window, watching the hatchling explore its sanctuary. It was thriving, curious, playful, and alive. Callum's chest swelled with relief and pride. He had risked everything for a being smaller, weaker, and entirely dependent on him. And yet, the moment was not about glory. It was about connection, compassion, and human ingenuity overcoming impossible odds. The hatchling chirped, hopping toward him. Callum extended a hand, and it brushed against his fingers, tiny but deliberate. The gesture felt monumental. A bond had formed, trust earned and returned. The universe was vast and dangerous, but in that moment, one human and one rare creature had proven that courage, intellect, and determination could change fate. Callum smiled, eyes misting. The station hummed quietly around him, life continuing, but the echo of their ordeal lingered in his mind. Humans had faced the impossible and prevailed. One act of courage had preserved a miracle. And in the eyes of a tiny shimmering dragon, Callum saw humanity reflected, a species capable of bravery, of love, of intelligence, and of hope. He whispered softly, "We survived. Together." And as the hatchling curled against him, safe at last, Callum knew that their story would echo through the stars, a reminder that humans, even alone against impossible odds, could shine brighter than fear, technology, or even the universe itself.